What's up everyone, Eric Rossi, the guy with the eye here. Now, if you follow the channel for a while, I don't always talk about rumors, but when they become very well known from reputable sources, and I really only tackle the important ones, I think they're great discussion pieces, and that's what I want to talk about here with Sony's new high-end cameras that are pretty much leak spec at this point. Sony Alpha Rumors just posted this today, and this is something I've been following in the background too. Last year, we've heard about the Sony A9. This is going to be the high-end camera, and this is the prototype that it looked like back in 2014. And Sony Alpha Rumors, their source that they got for like the A6500 was true. And just a lot of this stuff, when I find it more or less that it could come true, is when I report it or more or less just discuss it. So if you're not in the rumors, this might not be for you, but as a lot of you like to discuss this stuff, this is something that we can discuss. So it has been known that Sony has wanted to compete with the Nikon and Canon flagship model cameras. They're high-end ones that are like $6,000, $6,500. And it seems like that this actually might happen. Now, once again, back in 2014, this is what the prototype looked like. This one, what everyone thought the A9 was going to look like. So no one's thrown the name or anything like that, but the sources indicate that there's going to be two models of this camera, which doesn't make sense to me. One's going to be a higher resolution model, around 70 megapixels, which is pretty insane. I don't know what they're targeting. I don't know if they're trying to beat the Fuji GFX, but the way that they might price this is not going to come close to it or something like that. And then they're going to release a lower resolution model, and I believe they said around 20 megapixels, and that is just a weird gap. Just give like 40 for that matter, compensate and only do one. But this is the reports now. Will both of them happen? No one knows. And Sony cameras more recently have gotten very good for stills photography in regards to autofocusing. Their focusing is actually spot on. Their A6300 improved it a ton over the 6000, and even the A6500 improved it over that as well. So I'd be interested to see that. They don't know what else could be coming out or what the naming system would be. I do think it will look like this camera to compete with what Nikon and Canon has. And the big part of this was it having the E-mount. If this didn't have an E-mount, this would be an absolute bust and a failure in my opinion, because as these lenses are getting produced, and Sony's been doing better about putting some of them out there, be it their prices are very high on them, they need these type of lenses, and especially if you're gonna have a 70 megapixel camera, this needs to be some damn good glass. But that's the big thing right here, and hopefully it's not the A mount for something like this. Even though they did revive the A99, I think they need to go with the E mount, and it says that's the demand of the photographers that they've gotten. The other thing that they mentioned was the lower resolution is very fast, and the prototype has around 20 frames per second. And that makes more sense. It wouldn't be on the high model because that's a lot of damn resolution and pixels. But 20 frames per second, holy hell. That would be pretty damn amazing if you ask me. The other thing is going to be these are going to cost around $6,000, which does put them towards the high end of Nikon and Canon, which I'll cover that in a second as well. Because they've been pretty much taking that high-end market. So if Sony gets into this, they're really digging into what Nikon and Canon aren't doing, for that matter. The other thing that they said is essentially almost confirmed at this point. It's going to have that unlimited buffer, and especially with that lower resolution and the 20 FPS, it's going to be like shooting infinite amount of time. The big thing will be the dual memory card slots. They say probably dual SD, which is interesting because they're not even using their Sony XQD cards, if that's true. And SD is it's not getting phased out, but thank God it's not CF. So there we go, and it looks like that the lower megapixel one will be released before the higher megapixel one. So that's what I wanted to talk about here. $6,000, they're going to have possibly two different models, which I think is ridiculous. There's no need. Does anyone want 70 megapixels? Here we go. You have Nikon's D5, which does use the XQD card slots, $6,500. It is 20 megapixels, so it would match that lower end one, but it does 4K video. So obviously the Sony will have 4K video. They've been doing it better than Nikon and Canon, obviously, because they're hardly using it anyway. High ISO has been the big thing, 12 frames per second. I have the Canon 1DX Mark II, which is about $6,000, obviously without lenses, which is also around 20 megapixels. So if Sony does the 70 megapixel one, they are in their own game when it comes to these flagship models. Now, the perk about this is it does 4K better. So this 4K is actually good. You can even use their cinematic C-Log within this stuff, which is absolutely amazing. You will not see that anytime soon in the other models. It has dual pixel AF, which is obviously a big deal. They have touchscreen and everything. So it looks like, and they're using CFast. So it looks like if this Sony thing does come true, and we probably will hear about this in the next month or two, that they need to hit on a few key points to be up there with the Nikon and Canon. But I've talked too long, and I just want to hear what you guys and girls have to say about this, because if you're a high-end user, flagship model of the Nikon and Canon, would this interest you in moving? I mean, Sony has taken over a lot of the market recently in the past 3 years. What do you think? Do they need two models? Do they need 20 frames per second? I mean, that's obviously a sports shooter's wet dream. 70 megapixels, 20 megapixels. Do they just need one of like 30 megapixels, 40 megapixels? And what do you think about anything? Are you excited about this? Are you not? Are you at least intrigued? The only thing is, it's way out of most of our price range, but this isn't the camera for us per se. I'll report back when there's more news about it, because usually when there's something like this, something solid, there's a couple other little cruddy ones in between, which I don't like to report on. But let's at least engage discussion. What do you think?